I was seeing the detrimental effects, of antibiotics, of, the level of glyphosate that is sprayed on our food and our Cheerios and our wheat products.
But there's other things that could be going on with the body that you wouldn't ultimately think, oh, the root cause is my gut.
But I think when we have this porous gut wall and those things are going back into the bloodstream, you can feel absolutely terrible, terrible, terrible. So that to me is the term leaky gut, is just the unwanted items have seeped out through the gut and they've gone back into the bloodstream.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of For Life, a wellness podcast by LifeSeasons. I'm your host, Niki Wolf, and today we're going to be diving into the conversation around building a healthy mucosal lining in the gut. We have our guest, Cady Kuhlman, today. She's the co-owner of Nutrition World in Chattanooga, Tennessee, with a master's in holistic nutrition and a lifelong dedication to holistic health and healing. But her passion really stems from empowering individuals to embrace their body's innate ability for self-healing through proper nutrition. Thank you so much for being here, Cady.
Oh, thank you so much. That was a wonderful introduction. I'm so happy to be on here. And, I just love conversations on how we can be our best self and have our best health. So I'm looking forward to our topic today. And it was wonderful chatting with you before. So
Yep, I've been following not only Nutrition World, but just the material that you put out on a regular basis. And it is so inspiring. I love what you guys are doing. If you are in the area local to Chattanooga, highly recommend. You probably already know of Nutrition World, but you guys are the mecca, and what you are doing over there, the services that you're offering is absolutely incredible. So I just love everything that you're putting out, and I'm very grateful to connect today.
Thank you. It is a unique place, and I appreciate you saying that. My father started it back in 1979, so I was little here growing up in the business and running around, ringing up at the cash registers, and we were at a different location than we are now, and so this is our only brick and mortar that we have, but we're thankful that we have a podcast and ways to reach people now nationally that we didn't have, many decades ago. So we've got 17 practitioners. So we've grown this community because our foundational idea is that we can't just build health with one supplement. We can't build it with just eating correctly. It really takes like a village. The way it takes to raise a child, it takes a village to really get to our best health now. And so we have all these practitioners that we feel align with our philosophy and can help someone get to their best health as well. So it is like a little mecca. That's also something that we say.
Absolutely. And I mean, I haven't visited the location, but you guys have, you can go in there for lab work. There's so many different, beyond practitioners, there's so many services that you guys offer that truly, if you are looking for an alternative approach to healing your body, you can go in there, get work done, and be serviced in so many different ways to help you find your optimal health and wellness.
Oh, absolutely. Something we launched like 3 years ago, I would say. And then probably right after COVID, or maybe right around COVID time, was our wellness consulting. So our consultations that we offer, they're $75 and they're personalized consultations. When someone comes in and says, I just don't know how to lose weight. I just don't know how to feel better. I cannot get off the Diet Cokes, or I don't know what's going on with my brain fog and, anxiety, overwhelmed, and all of this. So we have 4 health coaches here now that are just phenomenal in their backgrounds and their amount of schooling that they've had, and also just their personal health that has kind of created a natural love for this industry. So they sit down for an hour and they go over someone's health from A to Z, and that person leaves feeling empowered. That person leaves feeling like they have a game plan. And I think that's, in the age of information, sometimes we need that personalization, because we can go read a million things now. We can listen to a million things, but like, what do I really need to do is sometimes the question. And so we're thankful that we offer those. And that's also something we offer nationwide. So you just go to our website and click consultations at the top, and we do those via Zoom and virtual all the time. So
I love that. And I think health coaching is this conversation that's starting to come up a little bit more. And for those of you who don't know, it really bridges the gap between, let's say, doctor, whether it's a medical doctor, naturopathic doctor, and client. We're really able to find that sweet spot of what you need, but also to ask the right evocative questions of, maybe a doctor has been telling you all along that you need to change this, or you need to lose weight, or you need to lower this, but that client isn't making those changes. And what a health coach can do is really bridge that gap and ask the questions that might shift something internal in you. I remember, one question if you were to able to lose this weight, let's say we're talking to somebody who's, 60 years old, has kids, have grandkids. If you're able to lose weight, what might that allow you to do? Maybe I can play with my kids more. So it starts evoking something out of them that is going to ignite the change in the spark. So I completely believe in health coaching. And it's not just this like therapeutic conversation. They're actually giving you insights, to your point, of personalized recommendations, looking probably whether it's with your health coach or other practitioners of lab work. This is what we advise you should be taking, whatnot. I'm assuming that's kind of a collection of different things over there.
We do. Yeah, absolutely. We have 2 health coaches that are licensed to be able to go over blood work. The other 2 are not yet, but they do a lot of dietary recommendations and help people sometimes with supplement protocols. They come in and say, I've gotten on 15 things. I don't really know if that was what I needed to do. I don't know when to take them. They can just kind of, get them into the exact right regimen of what they need. But yes, lab work is critical. We're getting one of our coaches certified in a GI map situation to really look at what's going on within the gut. And we're going to get into some of the gut things today, but, a deeper dive on that personalized health. And I think that's the big thing. Like, we all talk about, if you sit down and you actually think about your goals in life, in order to reach any of those goals, having good energy and good health is behind all of that. So whether it's about playing with your grandchildren, whether it's about having more energy for your children, like at our age, it's all coming back to feeling better. And so it's life-changing what we do. And I'm just thankful we get to do this every day.
Yep. That's so beautiful. Yeah. Now, okay. So our conversation today is on that mucosal lining. There's other names for that, but when we're talking about our gut, what do you mean by the mucosal lining, and why is this so important to focus on building a healthy mucosal lining?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've become a little bit obsessed with the mucosal lining over the last few years because I was seeing the detrimental effects, of antibiotics, of, the level of glyphosate that is sprayed on our food and our Cheerios and our wheat products. And for those that don't know, glyphosate is Roundup, and it is used, very heavily in the U.S. It's outlawed in so many other countries, but unfortunately used here in the U.S. And what that means is Roundup's actually a registered antibiotic. And so when I speak about the use of antibiotics that we may take orally for an infection, or whether we're eating the foods that have been sprayed with Roundup, those go in and those start making holes in our gut lining. And really what they're making holes in is the mucosal lining. And so if we imagine like our gut, we imagine almost like slime, like that you played with as a child, like around all the epithelial cells and around all these tissues and, our colon, and around all of this, we have this mucosal lining that is a protective barrier. And so, if you think about this protective barrier that's sludgy and slimy, and I know I'm not creating a yummy description, but that is what it is. That's keeping out pathogens, that's keeping out infections, that's keeping out unwanted bacteria, unwanted fungus, that's keeping out viruses, that's keeping our inflammatory proteins down. I mean, it's a host of things that mucosal lining is protecting. And I think we focus a lot now on probiotics, which there is a role in probiotics and mucosal bearing, but there's also a lot to do with food and a lot to do with the right supplements to help protect that mucosal lining. And I oftentimes think people don't realize the need for going in and rebuilding that mucosal lining. So I would just love to bring some more awareness to that today.
Absolutely. And I think there's a terminology that has been around too, and maybe we can make a connection. When we hear the terminology leaky gut, can you explain a little bit of that and how that is connected with the mucosal lining?
So that pretty much is what I described, which is the situation of those little porous holes coming into our digestive tract and into our gut walls. And what's so unfortunate is when this happens, there's always hope. And I'm a very hopeful person when it comes to our health. So we can always rebuild this. But what happens is when we ingest, say, food, or we, say a bacteria or a virus, someone coughs and that goes in, our nose and our mouth and our eyes, and it's going through. Our gut has a lot of work to do in order to either break down the food, break down the virus, break down what has been into our bodies, or say if we ate something that was a little bit bad, whatever's gone into our body, we actually don't realize how much work our acid that's been produced is actually going to kill off what we don't want. And acid is a beautiful thing. So it comes up and begins that digestive process immediately upon us putting food in our mouth. And then it's going down into our gut. And when it gets down into our gut, if we have a porous gut or a gut that has little holes in it, when we have something unwanted, we have, say, a food that has high histamine levels. So foods with high histamine are like leftover food items. They create more histamine. So if someone's, leftovers are fine, but if you cooked meat and you left it in the fridge a couple days, it's going to be higher histamine. There's a whole list of high histamine foods. But if we eat these foods that say either have high histamine, if we have a virus going on, whatever unwanted things, they are going back through our little gut lining. They're going back into our bloodstream, and then they create a terrible inflammatory response. And so this inflammatory response could look like so many things. This could look like joint issues. This could look like brain fog. This could look like IBS, IBD. This could look like, there's more disease names than we've ever had in the history of life. And we keep putting names to stuff. And for me, if we go back and we look at what originally was going on, I think a lot of those disease names could almost go away. They're very real, and so I'm not negating them. But I think when we have this porous gut wall and those things are going back into the bloodstream, you can feel absolutely terrible, terrible, terrible. So that to me is the term leaky gut, is just the unwanted items have seeped out through the gut and they've gone back into the bloodstream. And I love this little, I don't know how well that can be seen, so I hope that it can, but like a normal gut is over here. So the normal gut is very tight, all these little cells, all the mucosal lining, everything's very happy, very tight. All the little fibers and hairs and all of it are keeping everything the way that we want it to. So pathogens and unwanted things are just bouncing off of it. And they are literally, our body knows what to do with that. It says, bye-bye, send that on down the GI tract, secrete that on out the bowels. Let's get rid of that. Over here in a leaky gut scenario, it is these loose junctions. These are literally just separating and allowing for pathogens, viruses, bacteria, funguses, mold, nonstop things to just be going in and then going into the bloodstream. And then the bloodstream is just angry at that point because it's having to fight so hard to be healthy because of the initial function of the gut was not working in the way that it should.
So. Absolutely. And I think, you mentioned a good point, how sometimes the symptoms aren't necessarily typical gut related. So you said brain fog. We generally, I know the terminology brain to gut connection is much more known and prevalent now, but there's other things that could be going on with the body that you wouldn't ultimately think, oh, the root cause is my gut. And I think research is starting to show that so much is coming back to our gut. The amount of the immune system and immune cells, everything that is, because our gut isn't just right down here. It's this entire system in our body that's responsible for so many things beyond digestive support. Now, so you mentioned a few of the symptoms. What are the things, I know we mentioned, the foods that we eat, antibiotic use. What are some other the things in our lives that we're doing, consuming, surrounding ourselves with that is leading to this leaky gut?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually had a personal experience with mold that created a leaky gut issue for myself. And so I always like to draw just a small amount of attention onto this. But living in older moldy homes is one of the ways as well. You're breathing that in, your skin's taking that in, your body, you're getting it in through the mouth, the nose. And so mold is a terrible pathogen that can create leaky gut on its own. Like I said, the antibiotic use, and something that I want to point out with antibiotic use, I hear this all the time from clients, so I just want to say it. So many clients will say, I took an antibiotic and I didn't have any symptoms, so I think that one was fine with me. And that always hurts my heart a little bit because I am not anti-medicine. I'm not there is like a time and place for life-saving medicine. Absolutely. There's no arguing that. But I think there's an overprescription of antibiotics. And I also think that there's a ridiculous thing that goes on when you can't prescribe a probiotic at the same time to help with what the antibiotic was going to cause as well. Mm-hmm. So I just want to draw the attention to, if you've had a time in your life where you had antibiotics multiple rounds, or you started noticing antibiotics weren't working as well for you, or you thought, oh, I'm getting more UTIs, or how come, in the last 5 years I've taken 8 antibiotics, say, but it never caused digestive issues. I guess it was fine with my gut. There have been research to show that you really don't see the detrimental effects of antibiotics for almost up to 10 years. So it is not going to be I took an antibiotic, I have now, a brain fog, or it's not, I took an antibiotic, I have IBS, IBD. That is not really the way that it seems to happen. I think the body tries to function as best as it can until how many things line up to fill our toxic bucket, or how many things line up, stress load, lack of sleep, before the body just cannot keep maintaining that homeostasis as well. Mm-hmm. And so for me, antibiotics, the research shows antibiotics kill off, obviously, the good bacteria as well as the bad, but it does kill off the good bacteria. That's okay if we rebuild our probiotics and we rebuild the good bacteria through prebiotic foods like good healthy fibers, bananas, the right types of fruits. Blueberries are wonderful, all wonderful. But I think what we're going back to here is working on that mucosal lining. And that is something that is not addressed very much with the use of antibiotics. I think now there's an awareness of people that come into our store and they say, I'm on an antibiotic. I know I need to take a probiotic. So super thankful for that. That's definitely going to help those people long term. But there's never anyone that comes in and says, what else can I do for my mucosal lining while I'm on this antibiotic? And so that's where I just feel that it's so necessary to look at, because I see a host of people that, like I said, do the rounds of antibiotics for a few years. And then it's like their health after the 5 years or the 8-year mark starts deteriorating, and they start questioning why. And so it's not clear that it was that antibiotic, but it really was if we look back and kind of start looking at the timeline.
You mentioned something earlier, and I think I got it from your bio. And at LifeSeasons, we firmly believe in the body's innate ability to heal itself. Mm-hmm. And I think when we take this approach of suppressing acute issues, UTI, stuff like that, there's a lot of research that shows that this can lead to more of these chronic issues, whether that's autoimmune issues. And that's what I think is starting to become much more prevalent. To your point of, you might be taking, and I am fully with you. I am a product of, I had to be in the hospital when I was 3 years old. I've been a guinea pig for a drug when I was 3 years old. I have tumors, cysts, paralyzed, all kinds of things. And so there is a time and a place for Western medicine. Absolutely believe it. It is life-changing. I've had 911 on speed dial, So there is a time and a place, but the foundation of our health, where we have the ability to optimize and thrive, I truly believe that's in this Eastern lifestyle diet, mindset, focusing on sleep and getting out in nature, all these different components. And that's the beauty of integrated medicine. We're blending these worlds together and taking the best of both worlds. But I think when we are constantly trying to suppress some of these acute issues, we end up with more of these chronic ones down the road. And like you said, beyond antibiotics, the foods that we're eating, but sleep plays a huge role. Stress plays a huge role. And so really focusing on how do we optimize and how do we get better sleep? And it might be pausing some of the other priorities in our life to improve some of these other markers, because you might notice a difference, and it might not happen overnight. But what are some of the things that we can be doing to support a healthy mucosal lining, whether that's supplementation, whether that's nutrition? What does that look like?
Absolutely. So my favorite thing on earth is actually butter. So really clean organic butter. It's high in butyrate. And so butyric acid or butyrate is going to be actually one of the best ways to increase your natural mucosal lining. Our body takes that short chain fatty acid and turns it into a usable form of what's needed for the mucosal lining. It's that little builder right there for the mucus that's needed. And so I am a huge fan of organic butter.
Are you snacking on it by the stick, Cady?
I do, yeah. I'm a huge, I probably go through 8 sticks of butter a week on myself, I would say. So
so you really are snacking on it.
Oh, yes, I am. Yeah. And I can't say that I needs to do that high of levels. I genetically have very low cholesterol, and so I don't make a lot of cholesterol. So I feel a little bit more propensity and need for me to get a little bit higher, fat levels than probably the average person. So I don't think that that's necessary for everybody, but I am a huge believer that organic butter would go on, in the cooking of your food, or it would go on top of your broccoli or your fish or, your healthy foods that you're eating. If you don't want to eat organic butter, we sell products that have butyric acid in it or butyrate. And so we have a wonderful product by like Designs for Health. It's tributylin. I love it. So it's going to be what's within butter, but it's going to be in supplement form. I think that's amazing. I love DGL. So DGL comes from licorice. It's an extract, and you're probably familiar with it, but an extract from licorice. And it literally has a mucosal texture to it that you can feel it almost in your mouth become like a little bit slimy as you're chewing it. And again, that sounds so gross, but it actually tastes good. It tastes almost like.
Well, if we think about our mucosal lining, to what you were saying, is we want to add, I mean, maybe it does sound gross, but I think if we're listening, we know that that's what we want. We don't want anything dry. We want to create that mucus. So I think that makes sense.
Exactly. I think so too. And so DGL has been critical for me and my clients over the years when they've come in and they've mentioned there are either reoccurring infections that are going on, or they're, like I said, the key markers of this, if you're listening, would be like, I keep getting, an infection, and then I'm having to take an antibiotic for it, and then the antibiotic's not working as well. Those are kind of wake up signs that the gut is no longer functioning in the way that it really should, because, we're exposed to thousands of things all day long. We have no idea how much our body's fighting for us that we don't even realize how much it's doing, until you start getting sick constantly more than normal. And getting sick is a normal thing. But if you get sick back to back to back and can't figure out what's going on, I think it's time to look at the mucosal building products. So like I said, incorporating organic butter.
Is there anything else in regards to butter? Is there anything else we should be looking for when we're choosing our butter?
So that's a good question. I mean, I'm always a fan of if like the farm or the source of where it's coming from, because you can go get organic and non-GMO. And I sometimes still question a few of those things. As we know, it's hard to always know and trust these days what is what. But of course, in my eyes, and as most people may know, like in our bodies and in animals' bodies, where toxins are going to accumulate is in fat. And so when you're going to be consuming, fat from a cow, from their butter, you want organic. It's not an option to not eat organic, because this is one of those things, almost like you have the concept of the dirty dozen with fruits and vegetables. This would be on the list of like, you just have to spend your money on the organic butter, because you don't want the toxic waste of the cow in your fat. So
I am so glad you mentioned that. That's something, not everybody can afford to purchase everything organic, but something that I think is so important. Once I understood that the toxins are stored in the fat cells of the animals, that you want to make sure if you're going to be consuming those fatty portions of meat, that you are having the best quality, or else you're going to be taking in all those toxins. So absolutely couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. And so think about, like, if we're trying to heal our gut and get rid of toxins, that's so counterintuitive to do it with the wrong types of, fats. So we definitely want to go organic, like you're saying. I've read a little research on like MCT oil being able to do this with the mucosal lining as well. I've also read that our gut can heal with the right type of exercise, which I find really, really just fascinating. And I had a little bit of research here that I was actually going to say. It was more endurance-based exercise. And while I'm looking, the other thing would be omega-3 fatty acids. I'm a huge fan. So again, that's another fat. But looking at omega-3 fatty acids, and we have looked at blood work for, the last 25 years here. And I don't think we've ever seen someone have optimal omega-3 status unless they were consuming a fish oil. So we just do not eat enough fish in the U.S. and in our, communities. Most of us don't live by fresh water. People just don't have a taste for fish as much here in our culture. So when they come in, a lot of people will come in and say, but I eat nuts and seeds. That's fine. And I'm good with that. But that is not a usable form of omega-3s. It's got to be converted. And a lot of that is lost. And you have to consume such a high quantity of the nuts and seeds. You're not really ever going to get enough of the omega-3s. So lots of research on omega-3s and its ability to build that mucosal lining. I'm a pretty big fan of around 2 grams of omega-3s per person per day.
Is there a brand that in particular that you like?
I love True Grace. I don't know if you know.
Grace.
Have you
Never heard of them.
Grace? Oh, it's phenomenal. It's a husband and wife that owns the company, and they do wild Alaskan pollock is the type of fish. And then they do third-party testing, and of course, it's heavy metal free, all of that. Kind of going back to our fish are in dirty, dirty water, unfortunately. So we want to make sure they're also the cleanest. So I love the True Grace fish oil. No burps, digest really easily. That would be an everyday thing for me.
You take this on a daily basis, but then are you working to consume other forms of omega-3 from food source as well?
I am. My whole thing is like, in an ideal world, we would be getting most of our stuff from food. So I always want to use that mentality of like, I'm still going to consume my wild caught salmon twice a week. I'm still going to be, eating my organic butters. I'm still going to be doing some MCT oil on my coffee in the morning, those kind of things. But I still feel like, and nuts and seeds here and there, I still feel like, and I do blood testing on myself, that the only way I can maintain optimal is through taking fish oil. So it's like my supplement, like my additional thing that I do to supplement my diet, for sure.
Absolutely. Our world is changing, our environment's changing, our soil. And so there are certain tweaks that we have to do, but that's the beauty of, some of these companies that are putting products out there. And, it's designed to supplement and give us the foundation to have an optimal life and to feel optimally. Is we might not be able to get 100% of our needs from our food anymore. And if you can, that's a beautiful, beautiful thing, but that's the beauty of supplements.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. And so, something else, I don't know how familiar you are with like IgG or IgA products. Do you know those at all?
So I know that I believe those are things that we test for, like with blood work, like you could see your IgG, but I've never heard in regards to something that we're taking in.
So I love Just Thrive makes an IgG capsule that has IgG in it, and it comes from bovine. And so our body naturally secretes that as an immune response, but it will secrete less of it if we have a leaky gut situation going on. And when it secretes less, we have more intestinal permeability. So you can take it like in an endogenous form coming from like the Just Thrive capsules, and that's going to help your body rebuild more of its own to help rebuild that mucosal status. So I'm a huge fan of IgG. I think it has a lot of research behind it. And I don't think that a person, again, that's listening to this, I don't think they have to dive into all these things I'm saying at once. I almost think it's always best to start in a systematic way, like the butter as a part of your daily just diet. That's a diet thing. And then choosing one of these things, choosing the DGL, choosing the IgG, choosing the butyric acid, as part of the plan.
I agree. So there was something that you mentioned that I want to make sure our listeners can understand. You said permeability, and I know that that's a terminology that's used in the gut health world. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, definitely. So going back to the concept of like leaky gut and my little picture here of like, this is exactly showing a permeable gut. So this means, things are slipping through here, they're slipping through here. So that's permeability, and we don't want that within our gut. So we do not hope to have a permeable gut. We want to restore that over to this place and over to this tight junction, no leaky gut. And a common complaint we have in our store is brain fog. And I know we did touch on that a little bit, but a lot of newer research has come out, and people that I follow are saying leaky gut equals leaky brain. So this idea that if you do have a leaky gut and those things are going back into the bloodstream, that they are able to actually circulate up through the blood-brain barrier into the brain and causing a little bit of brain inflammation and a little bit of a brain fog feeling. And for those that have experienced brain fog, it's a terrible feeling. And I don't know if you've experienced it in your life, but it's you're confused, like your head's in a cloud, unable to draw on words really quickly. And it can be many root causes of that. There could be hormonal causes. There could be obviously lack of sleep causes. There could be many causes. There could be a toxin issue, like a mold exposure kind of thing. But if we all go back to if our gut could be less permeable and could be more resistant to what was coming into our body, the toxins would move out more effectively. So happen, for a couple that comes in and the couple says, I got really ill in this home from mold, and this other couple's like, or the husband's like, I was fine. I mean, I can't say in that exact instance what it was, but maybe she had a leaky gut and he did not. And so those are examples of just the constant pouring into our gut makes us more resilient in our health, and the resiliency allows for everything to work better. So that to me is where the concept of, our gut is our starting point for our health. I think it goes back to this exact example of, keeping ourselves out of a leaky gut state.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes we can also normalize certain symptoms and behaviors of, oh, I'm not healthy. There's like a balance of, is this normal? Is this common? Or is this optimal? Because maybe the husband, he's just so used to kind of like, let's say he was facing brain fog, but that just became a normal pattern where he's like, I'm nothing's going on because I'm not feeling something obvious like distension or diarrhea or anything like that. We're starting to normalize behaviors. And so I think we're in a world now where we're starting to question, we're starting to become more aware and in tune with our bodies. One thing that I'd be curious too, if if we have leaky gut, we'd assume that the major symptoms right away are going to be gut related digestion, but we talk about brain fog. We talk about, maybe even anxiety or some of these other neurochemical issues going on in the body. Do you think that there's sometimes that we have more asymptomatic digestive symptoms and then more common neurodegenerative symptoms?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And I'm glad you brought that up. That was going to be one of the things I was going to touch on. I couldn't put an exact number on it, but I would almost say it's 50% of people would have some type of digestive dysfunction where they're like, oh, I'm, running to the bathroom after I eat dairy every time now, or, oh, I'm so constipated, I'm only going every 4 days, terrible dysfunction that's very clear, like something's wrong here. The other 50%, totally regular, would argue almost to say, I don't have gut dysfunction because nothing is symptomatic here. And so I think that's our bodies are so beautiful because they're always trying to work for us. And I think they're always trying their best to serve us in the way that they can. And they're so resilient. And so I think a lot of times it just depends on the person's genetics. I think it depends on the person's, just natural chemistry as to where the dysfunction is going to go. So I think for a lot of people, somehow the gut maintains its regularity, maintains its kind of well-balanced look, and then it becomes more mental, it becomes more brain fog, it becomes more, even like 70% of our serotonin is made from our gut. So then could it be coming into a little bit of anxiety, depression feelings, where it was here, and yet that person's still going to the bathroom every day and not knowing that there is a component, So the listener could be like, well, then how do I know it's my gut or not? And so I would ask myself, if you've been on one antibiotic in the last 3 years, I know that's not many. And I know that most average Americans are probably on 1 to 3 a year is what I've read. I would think the person needs to address their mucosal lining, even if they've been on one, just so that we set it back to its health that it previously was at and try to maintain. There's no reason to not try that when that is such a root cause of so many things.
Absolutely. So there's a few different directions that I think I want to go with this. And I would love to touch into a few more ingredients that are going to be supportive. I'd love to spend some time on slippery elm and talking about aloe vera and how that's supporting, but then also leave the listeners with, okay, here are the supplements that we can take. This is our first step of action. But then what if we do have somebody who's listening? I think I am experiencing some of this stuff. It's a very obvious digestive, or it's a brain issue. What is the next thing I do beyond digestion? But before that, if we could explore slippery elm and aloe vera and what these are doing for the body.
Absolutely. So slippery elm is also going to be a mucilaginous herb. So it's going to have that's what it would be categorized in the herbal world. So it's going to have that slippery, slick feeling. Just like it says, it's cool. It's called slippery elm. It's going to do the same thing. It's going to build that little slimy, sludgy mucosal wall again. I think it's a great option. I would choose kind of between DGL and slippery elm on that one and, go for one or the other. I love slippery elm. Very rarely have side effects with, people that are starting it. Seems to be very easy to kind of integrate into the day-to-day regimen, but same thing, that mucosal, mucilaginous creation that slippery elm does for the gut lining.
And we do have that in our LifeSeasons IB Soother formula. Slippery elm,
I love that.
Triphala, marshmallow, bifidobacterium. So really good for those individuals.
Marshmallow is another great one. So I love marshmallow too. So that's a wonderful marshmallow and slippery elm. Marshmallow is also categorized in that mucilaginous type herb as well. So that could be another great use. Yeah.
Fantastic. Great.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Then aloe vera.
Yeah, aloe vera actually has the ability to regrow tissues, which is so cool. So if there's a damaged or there's something a little bit like scarred or perforated or aloe, that's why we know of it for the skin. And we think of all these epithelial cells on our skin. We also have that in our gut. So if we have the ability, it's so cool. If you take a aloe leaf and you literally put it on your skin, you're going to have healing on a burn or a cut pretty fast. And so similar to the ingestion of aloe, you're going to have healing within the gut lining and the gut walls for anything that could be irritated, inflamed, perforated. So it has that same ability to kind of look at that leaky gut and say, how can we heal those tissues again? So if you have a formula that could have a lot of those things, like the LifeSeasons one that you mentioned, I think does the LifeSeasons one have aloe or no?
Not in that formulation. Okay. And I'm trying to think off the top of my head. And it's interesting because, first of all, aloe, the way you mentioned it kind of sounds like a stem cell effect, that it helps kind of support that damaged or disease. I mean, you think about if you break off the aloe, it helps it will regrow. So it's just the beauty of nature and what it provides. It's telling us, that's the doctrines of signature. It's kind of telling us what it's beneficial for. But I'm curious too, do you prefer your aloe capsules? Because I have tried drinking it or even making it myself, and it is a very acquired taste. And so maybe I'm not drinking the right one. But what is the best way that you recommend individuals take it?
I like drinking it. I oddly enough love it. So I don't know if that's my own body saying that I need it or it just calls to me for some weird reason. There's a brand that we have, Herbal Answers, and I used to train under them, and then we sold a lot of it here at our store. They had claimed to be the only active aloe vera. I cannot say if that's true at this time or not, but back a few years when I studied under them, it was the only one where when they could actually look at like gas chromatography testing and whatnot to see that the live aloe enzymes and particles were still fully alive in the bottle, even years after it had been extracted. So that was the one I always kind of gravitated to. And then they had one that had Essiac herbs, like and slippery elm and some marshmallow, stuff like that in it with the aloe. And so that was the ones that I was big on. But yeah, I agree. It's so cool when you think about pinching it off, you can regrow it all over your house in little different plants because it naturally knows how to regrow itself that well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious because I remember when I used to work in the health food stores, I remember always, and this brings like 10 years ago, that it would say either like the inner fillet or maybe fillet. I feel like that's what it would say, or the inner part or the outer part, or it has a combination of both. What should we be looking for?
I like the combination of both. I think that that's the way, in my eyes, it's naturally occurring in the plant is both of them. Mm-hmm. I think that I'm having to draw on like some older thoughts on this, but I think that one may contain something called allicin a little bit more, and allicin could be a little bit of a laxative effect. That's why sometimes I think people go for the inner because it has less allicin. But if a company removes allicin, then you could drink either the inner or outer. And so a lot of companies remove the allicin, and they'll say that.
I feel like I want a little bit of the laxative.
I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have some supplements in mind. We've talked a little bit about diet. Anything else regarding diet? We have the butter, the Omega-3s that you can get from fish, really good quality meat.
There's so many philosophies on diet too. It's sometimes hard to get into. I think I could have a philosophy and someone else could have one, and I think we can respect all of those. I am obviously, I think most people would be less processed foods, the cleaner, the better, the more real whole food, because that's going to naturally contain the prebiotics in themselves that are going to also be protective for the gut, the fibers that could ferment and turn into the short chain fatty acids that are so necessary for the gut. So fibrous foods like green vegetables, leafy greens, the berries are wonderful. Those type of things. And then I am a big proponent of clean organic meat. And so I know that some people are vegan, and I can respect that too, but there's so much research on meat and its healing effects for the gut, and how it's actually such a easy thing to digest that while you're in the process of healing your gut, it's one of the easier things for your body to move through, so that while you're healing it, you're not having to cause all this digestive distress in the time that it's breaking the meat down. So I'm a huge fan of really clean organic ground beef, especially knowing your farmer if you can, like we sell, our local farmers beef at our store. But I am a big proponent of like beef. I'm not worried about the cholesterol in it for people. That's just kind of a myth at this point. And so, just the least amount of processed foods, because we're going back to the idea we are trying to remove toxins and we're trying to heal this gut so that when a toxin does come in, we have more resiliency to it. But while you're trying to remove that toxic bucket, the least toxic foods possible. And we don't ask for perfection, but moving in the direction. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think something that I personally want to work on with our household is, we do purchase organic meat, but it's not from local farmers. I think even in starting to incorporate that nose to tail concept and getting organ meats, because the more, there's just a flooding amount of research showing the benefits that organ meats can provide. And I think just that we are micro selecting this very small portion of these animals, you're missing out on so many benefits, not just nutrients, but how it can support the body and even the environment. Consuming the whole animal, I think is, and I was vegan for, 4 years. I was raw vegan for a while. So I do understand, especially if that is your nature, but I think there's a lot of research that shows that if you want to live optimally and, if you're doing it for more of an animal purpose, but I think if you're doing it for more of a nutrient component and to help heal your body to the best ability, I think research shows that including high quality animal proteins in our diet is absolutely paramount.
Absolutely. I do too. And I have to say, I wish I did a little bit more of the organs in my own diet, my kids' diet, my husband's. I get a little picky when it comes to if something tastes too animal-like to me. And that's just something that I need to integrate into my taste buds. So I do organ supplements, and I'm a big fan of taking supplements that have the nose to tail, all ground up into a capsule. And couple brands, like I love, ancestral supplements. We sell what's the one I love? Perfect Supplements. They're wonderful. So there's so many good organ-based companies out there now. So that is a day-to-day way that I get a lot of B vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin K. It's so cool to know that our animals provided us most of all those nutrients we needed, even things that fruits and vegetables could not provide to us. And dense B12, so many cool things. But yet we just missed it all these years when we were just eating, the steaks and the ground beef and those kind of
chicken
things.
Breast.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, that's a good idea. And I think I was thinking, very all or nothing. But again, coming back to supplements, that is something that we could start supplementing if you haven't adapted that taste bud or you don't have the finances to. Except I don't even know if finances would necessarily be a thing, because I think some of those organ meats aren't the preferred for most individuals. So it's probably a little bit less of costly, but
right.
Okay. So we have different food.
Yeah. I've noticed that a few of them have become popular now. So I think prices have gone up. I've noticed that with our farmers' prices, but then a few of the types of organs are not quite as popular. Like I think our heart and spleen doesn't sell well, but then something else does. So prices have
liver.
Right. Liver's popular at the moment, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now let's say somebody's listening. They're like, okay, I think I have some of these symptoms. I'm happy to go take tests or supplements, but what can I do? What would be the next step? Is it lab work? Is it stool tests? Is it these GI tests? What would you recommend, whether they're local to you or not? What's the next step?
Yeah, that's a great idea or a great question. So, from a practicality standpoint, and also depending on how many symptoms and issues the person has going on, I personally recommend starting small and let's see what change can happen. So when I say starting small, adding the organic butter and then choosing a supplement, I would personally start choosing either DGL, slippery elm, IgG, or what did I miss there? Or the tributyrin. I would choose one of those 4 supplements or something that had most all of those in them. Something like LifeSeasons complex, I think hits, what did it hit? 3 of those? The slippery elm.
The marshmallow, triphala, slippery elm, bifidobacterium. There's a handful of other ones in there.
Okay. So something that at least hits a few of those items that I discussed, and integrate that into your day-to-day regimen for a month. And let's just see if there is an effect that goes on. So the person that is getting, everyday brain fog, or the person that's getting everyday migraines or headaches, or the person that is having the digestive dysfunction and it's, constipation, or it's nausea, or it's diarrhea, integrating one of those. That would be kind of my go-to thing, is let's try one of those. If there is no change, if there's negative change, which I didn't mention this, sometimes when the gut is in such a bad place, it is really sensitive because what's happened is those little pathogens, those little funguses, the little viruses, they're all kind of awaiting down there as well, because where a healthy gut would be seeded with a lot of good bacteria, an unhealthy gut could be seeded with retroviruses, viruses, pathogens, fungus, mold. And so there is a time where when you start trying to get that well, you get a little worse before you get better. And I know no one in the Western world loves to hear that, because we like results. We like to feel better. That was the goal. We weren't signing up to feel worse. And while I hear that and I get that, I, in my eyes, take that as a good response that we've created change. Now, I understand that no one loves to feel worse, and I wouldn't want to make someone feel terribly worse. So we would want to halt and kind of say, maybe go back to less dosing, maybe start with one, maybe start slow. I've had a lot of clients over the years who had been on so many antibiotics, yet had no gut dysfunction. But when I started them on a protocol, they had a flare-up of symptoms that went from symptoms being, say, 30% bad to 100% bad. Well, I would never want that for someone. So we had to go low and slow, because that gut was in an upheaval state of all those things that it didn't want in the healing process. So it was moving out. And in the time, it kind of flooded the bloodstream with those unhealthy pathogens until it could push them out to start getting them back and well and getting that mucosal layer back. So I say all that to say, someone that's sitting here and they're like, I've been on so many antibiotics and I have so many. Low and slow with what you're starting. Low and slow, whether it be one DGL, whether it be one tributyrin, one slippery elm. And that's not going to be the protocol to get to ultimate wellness. We're going to have to up that. But upping that would be over time and depending on the person's symptoms. And I did choose products that shouldn't have a huge negative effect, but I just want to say that in case there is that sensitive, really toxic gut person out there that is in that process of healing. And then after that, it would be moving into potentially a GI map, which I love. That's my favorite GI test personally. And we have Amber, one of our coaches, she's getting trained in reading the GI map. So she'll be ready to go soon in a couple of weeks. So she would see clients for that. There's wonderful other practitioners out there that sell GI map, maybe in your area, or would also interpret it for you. But the GI map would tell pathogens, fungus, bacteria, viruses, it would tell the state of your leaky gut. It's phenomenal. It goes in an in-depth analysis. So if the person's sitting here and they love data and they want to know before they act on something, that to me would be the go-to thing, would be a GI map. And then having a practitioner that's skilled in reading it so that they exactly know where to begin with you and a protocol. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. And I know a lot, like for instance, my mom, she loves the research. She wants to know what's going on in her body before she makes these steps. But to your point, those ingredients, the DGL, the slippery elm, they're generally safe and low and slow, especially if you're an individual who may consume a highly processed diet. Yeah. You probably naturally have a lot of toxins in your system, depending on the environment that you live in. Start small. We have a liver protocol that I like to do, and I have the double MTHFR mutation and a number of other things. So there's a few, you have the double?
I do, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yep. So we have to work a little bit extra hard to make sure that we are detoxifying properly. And, I think that's going to be a whole other season of just talking about cleansing the liver and everything that encompasses, because our world and our environment is so bombarded. And so we need to do a lot to clean out our body. But yeah, start low and slow, because I've had people who will take our liver product Purity and they feel, they're breaking out, they're getting headaches, they are having really odors are coming out. That's your body detoxifying. And if you have a very heavy amount of toxins in the system and you're not used to doing anything like this, you really want to start low and slow. So that I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I feel like, we've covered the importance of the mucosal lining, why we need to focus on this, some of the main symptoms that might occur, some ingredients, anything else. What are your thoughts on stool tests?
So I like stool test. I think that there's more research, though, to show GI map rather than just a general stool test. I think that, I've had back and forth research on that, where some people that were dealing with, say, parasites, their stool test didn't show the parasites because the parasites were hiding out, versus it was found in a GI map situation. So I'm more well read on a GI map to know, and I've also seen that be more beneficial in creating a game plan. And I think there's so many stool tests too. So I know that that's not a generalized answer, but I have also seen people with terrible gut dysfunction have a decent looking stool test. So I'm a little bit more oriented for the GI map for like an in-depth analysis. If someone was just going to spend their money one time, go all the way for the GI map rather than begin with a stool test.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that I didn't think about. So a few years ago, I got SIBO, H. pylori, C. diff, blastocystitis hominis, and candida all at the same time. So it was like, yeah. And so when we talk about neurodegenerative issues, I mean, I felt that brain connection very deeply. And I can't remember if it was, it went back and forth. There was, the brain issues and then the gut and then the brain. But we did stool tests, we did, breath tests and all these different things. But I was on a very strict, so low FODMAP diet for 4 months. And there's all these different diets. But one thing that you mentioned is if those parasites are hiding out. So let's say you do have these digestive issues and you're like, okay, well, let me do my own research. Let me follow this particular diet. That diet might help reduce the symptoms, but it's also helping the parasites kind of, they're never being killed. They're just being diminished if you're not following a protocol. So to your point, if you're following something and you do a test and they don't see those parasites, it might not be an accurate representation of what's actually going on in the body. So I do like that you mentioned that. And I mean, if we have the accessibility to be able to do all the testing, that's great. But I think a GI map, and I'll make sure to put that in the show notes. We can even, link your practitioner, your services, but just doing a GI mapping, I think would be a great start.
Absolutely. So we have to talk some other time about I hate that you went through all that, but it definitely, sorry, the sun changes so much here, but it definitely, I've had many issues that have gone from leaky gut to leaky brain for different situations of different areas of my life being exposed to something or something that occurred with the double MTHFR that I think was a predisposition that kind of set me up in that way, which is fine. We just have to work a little harder, as you said, for detoxing. So I think detoxing or maybe the double MTHFR would be a interesting topic next time.
I think it would. And I think something that I always think about, my mind is never to make products. That's just not my world. But one thing that I feel like is missing, and maybe you know of them, are children's products or, supplements that have the methylated B vitamins. Because I think we're starting to do that in a lot of adult products, B complex that are methylated.
We have a lot of them now. We have a lot.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, you'll have to look at our website and see, because I only bring in now for the kids section methylated B vitamins because I'm just afraid at this point
so
kids probably have either one or double hit of the MTHFR. And I just don't want to give anyone folic acid if I know we could give them the methylated version. So my favorite currently is Seeking Health. It's made by Dr. Ben Lynch, and it's this little chewable kids tablet. My kids both love it, so it must taste pretty good. They're not picky, but it tastes good, I think, like a berry flavor. But all methylated B vitamins.
That is very good to hear. I'm so glad that there's companies out there doing that. I think in a future season, we're going to do a family-oriented theme and talk about children's health. And so that would be really cool to connect on that of what are you giving your kids? What do we think is important for them? Obviously, food would be ideal, but there's certain things to supplement in. So
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Cady. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think I learned a lot. We pulled a lot of information on practical tips and kind of a roadmap for individuals if they are facing some of these digestive or brain issues that ultimately could reside from gut issues. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This was so enjoyable. I appreciate it. And thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. One more thing. Where can listeners find more information about you or Nutrition World?
Yeah, thank you. So nutritionw.com is our website. And so we can, you can shop our products there. We have our podcast, our blog. We have a course that we released, and we're going to start releasing more courses, which will be wonderful, at the top of our website there. And then I have a Facebook, Earth Conscious Mama. I'm not promoting it a ton at the moment, but it will happen again. I just am in a season of motherhood and business that's a bit busy for me, but in the future, Earth Conscious Mama. But for now, nutritionw.com.
Amazing. And if you're listening, you've already pulled away so much information from today, but Cady and her dad, Ed, are just such a wealth of information. And they have the products, they have the resources. So I highly recommend checking them out. I tend to follow them on YouTube and just watch all the videos and absorb all of the information. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you, Niki.